First story. Delusional sister dating my high school bully, and my entitled parents support them. Now he tried to bully at family dinner, so I gave him a reality check. And my family demanded I apologize to my bully, accusing me of sticking to the past and ruining my sister's life for something unworthy. So I exposed them and went NC. Hey, Reddit. I'm struggling here and need some outside opinions. For some context, I 27M was bullied pretty badly in high school. I was quiet, nerdy, and kept to myself, which apparently made me an easy target for this guy, Brian. He wasn't just a typical bully who threw the occasional insult. This guy made it his mission to humiliate me. He'd call me names, ruin my stuff, spread rumors, and make my life hell any chance he got. The worst part? He always did it with this fake nice guy charm that fooled everyone, including teachers. They thought he was some golden boy. It's been nearly a decade. But honestly, I still get a pit in my stomach when I think about him. After graduation, I moved far away from my hometown and started over. I got a job in tech, built a quiet life, and only visit my family on major holidays. It's not that I don't love them, but being back there brings up a lot of bad memories. Now here's where it gets messy. A few months ago, my younger sister 24F announced she was dating someone. I didn't think much of it until my mom mentioned his name, Brian. At first I thought no way, it can't be the same guy. But then I met him at Thanksgiving and yep, it's him. My sister is dating my high school bully. What makes this even worse is that Brian is still the same smug, manipulative guy, only now he's refined it. My sister sees him as this charming, successful guy who's so good to her. He's got my parents wrapped around his finger too. They're gushing about how he's such a great catch and how lucky my sister is. Meanwhile, I can barely be in the same room as him without feeling sick. I tried to keep my cool at first. I figured it's been years, maybe he's changed. But nope. During Thanksgiving he kept making these sly little comments aimed at me, things only I would catch. Stuff like, "Wow, you really grew into yourself, didn't you?" With this condescending tone. Or bringing up embarrassing stuff from high school in front of everyone. Pretending it was all harmless fun. My family ate it up. My sister laughed like it was no big deal and my parents told me to lighten up. After that, I decided to pull my sister aside and tell her the truth. I didn't even go into the full details, I just said that Brian wasn't the great guy she thought he was, and that he used to bully me really badly. Her reaction? She accused me of being jealous and holding on to the past. She said people change and that Brian's been nothing but amazing to her. When I tried to press her, she got upset and told me to drop it. To make things worse, my parents are on her side. They think I'm being dramatic and petty, and that I need to let bygones be bygones for the sake of family harmony. They even had the nerve to say I should apologize to Brian for being standoffish, like, are you kidding me? So now I'm stuck. I don't want to cause a huge family blow-up. But I also feel like I need to protect my sister. I've seen the side of Brian that he's clearly hiding from her. And I know how manipulative he can be. But she's so blinded by her feelings that I don't think she'd believe me, even if I told her everything. What do I do here? Do I keep my mouth shut and hope she figures it out on her own? Or do I risk the fallout and try to make her see the truth? I feel like I'm stuck between protecting my own peace and protecting my sister. TLDR. My younger sister is dating my high school bully. He's charming my whole family. But he's still the same manipulative jerk I remember. When I tried to warn her, she accused me of being jealous. And my parents think I'm the problem. Do I stay quiet or risk everything to tell her the truth? Update. Thanks for the advice, Reddit. A lot of you told me to focus on protecting my own peace, but also not to entirely give up on my sister. That made sense to me. So I decided to keep my distance but keep an eye on things. Well, that plan didn't last long because Brian escalated and now things are even messier. Here's what happened. My mom invited me to a family dinner this past weekend. At first I wasn't going to go. But then she guilt-tripped me, saying it was important to my sister. I figured I could show up, keep things civil and leave early. Big mistake. Brian was there, of course, playing the role of perfect boyfriend. He helped set the table, charmed my mom by complimenting her cooking, and even joked with my dad about football. Everyone was eating it up. Meanwhile, I was just trying to keep my head down and survive the night. Then, during dinner, Brian decided to start pushing my buttons. It started small. He made a comment about how I don't visit often, and how family is so important. My mom nodded along like he was some kind of saint, and I bit my tongue. But then he brought up high school. Out of nowhere he says, it's so funny how life works. Back in high school, OP and I weren't exactly close, were we? I mean, you probably thought I was a bit of a jerk, huh? I froze. My parents and sister looked at me like they were expecting me to laugh it off. But I couldn't. I managed to say something like, yeah, you could say that, and tried to change the subject. But Brian didn't let it go. He grinned and said, oh, come on, don't be shy. I was young and stupid back then, right? I mean, we all do dumb things when we're kids. Remember that time with the gym locker? Man, that was wild. For context, he's referring to a time in high school when he and his friends locked me in the locker room after gym class. I was stuck there for nearly an hour until a janitor found me. It was humiliating, and it still makes my skin crawl thinking about it. I could see my sister's face fall for a second, like she realized this wasn't a funny story. But then Brian laughed it off and said, obviously I'd never do anything like that now, right, OP? That's when I snapped. I looked him dead in the eye and said, yeah, locking someone in a room is real hilarious. Brian. Totally harmless fun. The room went dead silent. My mom looked horrified and my sister was visibly upset. Brian, of course, acted like I was the one overreacting. He put his hands up and said, whoa, no need to get worked up. I was just kidding. It's all water under the bridge now, right? I told him, not for me it's not, and excused myself from the table. I didn't trust myself to stay calm if I sat there any longer. After I left, my mom called me and said I was rude, and that I embarrassed everyone. She told me I need to let go of the past and stop making things awkward for my sister. When I asked if she even cared about what Brian did to me in high school, she brushed it off, saying, you were kids back then. He's a different person now. My sister, on the other hand, hasn't reached out to me. I don't know if she's mad at me or just doesn't know what to say. But here's the kicker. Brian texted me. He sent me this long message about how he didn't mean to upset me, and how he wants us to move forward for the sake of the family. He even threw in some BS about how he's changed and regrets any misunderstandings from high school. The whole thing felt so fake, like he's just trying to cover his arse. I haven't responded yet, and honestly I don't know if I even want to. Part of me feels like I should try to expose him for who he really is, but another part of me thinks it's a losing battle. My parents are clearly on his side, and my sister seems too invested in this relationship to hear me out. I don't know where to go from here. I feel like I'm being gaslit by my own family. Brian's little joke at dinner proves he hasn't changed, but no one else seems to see it. Do I keep trying to warn my sister, or do I just cut my losses and protect my own peace? I'm starting to think that no matter what I do, I'll come out of this looking like the bad guy. TLDR, my sister's boyfriend, who used to bully me in high school, brought up one of the worst incidents in front of my family and played it off like a joke. I called him out, and now my family thinks I'm the one causing drama. Should I keep fighting this or just walk away? Comments. Top comment. OP, I hate to say this, but your sister might not be as innocent as you think. The way Brian brought up that locker incident, and the fact that he laughed about it in front of her, makes it hard to believe she doesn't know. If she genuinely didn't, any normal person would have reacted with shock or concern. Instead, she stayed silent. That says a lot. I know it's painful, but it's worth considering the possibility that she knew exactly who Brian was all along and didn't care, or worse, found it funny. If that's the case, she's as bad as he is. Delete it. Your sister is either delusional or doesn't care. The fact that your parents are siding with Brian after everything is absolutely disgusting. They're prioritizing their picture-perfect family over your well-being. If I were you, I'd seriously consider cutting ties, at least for a while. Protect your peace, man. Update: I didn't expect my post to blow up like it did, and honestly the comments were hard to read. A lot of you said things I didn't want to hear but needed to. The idea that my sister might have known, or at least doesn't care, hit me hard. I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. But after what's happened recently, I can't anymore. I've decided to go no contact with my family. After the dinner where Brian joked about locking me in the gym locker, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was the odd man out. My sister didn't reach out to check on me, and my parents didn't seem to care how upset I was. A few days later, my mom called and opened with this. "Your sister is very upset with you and Brian feels terrible. I think you need to apologize." I almost laughed. She went on about how Brian's such a good guy and how I'm holding on to grudges that don't matter anymore. She even had the audacity to say, "If you don't let this go, you're going to push your sister away." That broke me. I told her, "You're right, I am going to push her away. And you. And Dad. Because I'm done being treated like my feelings don't matter. You've all chosen Brian over me, and I refuse to keep pretending I'm okay with it." She started sputtering about how I was misunderstanding the situation. But I didn't let her finish. I hung up and immediately blocked her number. Later that day, my sister texted me. I thought for a second she might be reaching out to make things right. But her message crushed that hope. "I don't understand why you're acting like this, OP. Brian told me he apologized. But you're still making a huge deal out of something that happened years ago. People grow up. But apparently you haven't. You're being petty and selfish. It's honestly exhausting. I'm not going to let you ruin my relationship because you can't move on." I stared at that text for what felt like an hour. She wasn't just dismissing what happened. She was blaming me for it. I didn't even respond. I couldn't. I blocked her number too. The next morning, I made the decision to go no contact with my entire family. I sent a group message to my parents and my sister that said, "It's clear to me that none of you respect me or my feelings. Brian bullied me for years and traumatized me. Instead of supporting me, you've chosen to side with him. I will not apologize for standing up for myself. And I won't keep subjecting myself to this toxic dynamic. I'm done." Then I blocked all of them on everything: texts, calls, and social media. To cover my bases, I also sent a separate message to some extended family members I'm close to. I kept it simple. "I want to let you know I've decided to step back from my immediate family. My sister is in a relationship with someone who bullied me severely in high school. My parents have dismissed my feelings to support him. I need to prioritize my mental health and won't be attending family events for the foreseeable future. Thank you for understanding." I wasn't expecting much support. But a few cousins reached out almost immediately. One cousin told me they remembered Brian from school and weren't surprised by any of this. Another admitted they'd always noticed how dismissive my parents were toward me compared to my sister. They said they supported my decision and hoped I'd find peace. As for my parents and sister, radio silence. I know they're probably spinning some story about how I'm being dramatic or ungrateful. But honestly, I don't care anymore. The truth is, this decision hurts like hell. But it also feels like I've finally taken control of my life. For years, I put up with their dismissal and their favoritism because I thought it was just part of being in a family. But family doesn't treat you like you're disposable. Family doesn't gaslight you into thinking your pain isn't real. I'm done playing the scapegoat. I'm done being the bad guy for standing up for myself. If my sister wants to marry Brian, that's her choice. But I won't be part of a family that enables my abuser. And if my parents can't understand why this hurts me, then they were never really on my side to begin with. To everyone who commented and gave me the push I needed, thank you. Walking away from my family isn't easy. But it's the healthiest thing I've ever done. TLDR, my sister doubled down. My parents demanded I apologize to my bully. And I've gone no contact with all of them. It hurts. But I'm finally prioritizing myself. Second story: my mom demands that I break up with my girlfriend because her father was my mom's high school sweetheart 30 years ago, claiming that my girlfriend would be my cousin. Me 27F, Kelly 27F, dating for 3 months. My grandfather died earlier this year, a disorder he'd been battling for years. Not COVID. And 3 months ago, we had a socially distanced funeral and wake for him. While there, I met Kelly and really hit it off with her. Kelly's grandfather had been my grandpa's best friend. And Kelly's dad and my mom had grown up as good friends until they moved away from each other and married other people. Kelly and I had never met before. And after dating for a few months, we decided to go public. We thought our parents would be thrilled. Wrong. My mom lost her SHT at me, screaming that Kelly's dad was practically her brother. I was basically dating my cousin. She also said that dating someone I met at a funeral was super inappropriate and a disgrace to my grandfather's memory. Kelly's parents have been telling her basically the same thing. Kelly and I are both really confused. My mom and her dad moved away before either of us were born. And the whole point of the wake, my family is extremely Irish, was to drink and celebrate my grandfather's memory. Is there some kind of taboo I'm breaking that I'd never heard of? I like Kelly a lot. But I'm not sure it's worth this kind of SHT storm. My family's never reacted like this to any other girl I've dated. TLDR, I met a girl at my grandfather's funeral. Her grandfather was mine's best friend. Both our families blew up when we started dating. Relevant comments. Coconut Baby, do you think there's a chance that your mom and Kelly's dad were together or had something going on? And maybe that's the reason she feels weird about it. Out of curiosity, have you had relationships before? How did your parents react to those? Is there any chance it's not so much to do with Kelly but more to do with the fact you're gay? Whatever the reason, it is a real shame that both families are reacting like this. If you and Kelly really like each other and think the relationship is worth fighting for, you should both have an open, honest, and calm conversation with your parents and try to bring them around. Find out exactly why they feel like they do. And explain how you feel too. You deserve happiness. Good luck. I guess I wouldn't be surprised if my mom and Kelly's dad had dated. They grew up in a small town. But to hear my mom tell it, Kelly's dad had always been like a brother to her. And when he joined the military after high school, they never saw each other again until the funeral. My family has never had a problem with me being gay. I came out in high school and they were very supportive. My mom knit something rainbow-colored for me every year for Christmas. Top comments. Panic 8 worthy. It's possible someone had an affair way back when. And she might actually be your cousin. Otherwise, their reactions make no sense. Dulls Magic Fishies. Maybe I spend too much time here. But I was going to say Kelly might be OP's sister. Pout Londonerd. OP and her girlfriend need to get DNA tests done. Tina 8. I really hope you guys are not related. And if your families will not tell you, you might want to take a DNA test. Update. I wasn't expecting so many responses. Needless to say. Or for so many people to say that incest is okay. No. Kelly and I discuss things. And she'd gotten similar advice elsewhere on the internet. We decided though that we'd first confront my mom and her dad with the threat of getting DNA tested first. We arranged to meet in a neutral place earlier today. The people who guessed that my mom and Kelly's dad used to be involved were right. They were high school sweethearts. But my mom went to college and her dad joined the military. My mom promised to wait for him, and they'd get married when they had a better idea of his future. Except my mom met my dad during her first semester at college, Dear John, Kelly's dad, and never saw each other again until my grandfather's funeral. It's still incredibly sore between them, and they hated the idea of Kelly and I dating because it would put them into regular contact with each other. Kelly and I told them it was 30 years ago and they need to get over it. And after some wrangling, both agreed. No affairs. No incest. Just a Jody and a jilting 30 years ago. Kelly and I are still dating. TLDR. We're not related. Parental drama was a bad breakup 30 years ago. Still dating. Third story. Entitled daughter forced me to sell my house and move in with her to clear her debts. Then kicked me out of her house when I was sick, saying I was a burden. Now, 4 years later, she came back, begging me to let her move into my house. Hi. I don't know if I'm doing this right. I'm not very good with computers and this whole site is a bit confusing. My friend's son helped me set this up because I've been losing sleep over something, and I don't have anyone else to ask. I just need to get it off my chest, and maybe someone can help me figure out if I'm being unfair. I'm 58 years old and a widow. My husband Mark passed away 10 years ago in 2014 and ever since then life's been a struggle. We bought our little house back in 1985, right after we got married. It was modest but it was ours. By the time Mark passed, the mortgage was fully paid off. That house was supposed to be my safety net, my one thing to fall back on no matter what. But things didn't turn out that way. In 2018 I got hurt at work. I used to be a nurse and I had to stop working. A back injury put an end to my career, and the medical bills started piling up. Between treatments, medications, and just trying to keep the lights on, I burned through my savings. By the end of 2019 I was desperate. That's when my daughter Emma stepped in. Emma is 32 now. She's always been the smart, confident one, the kind of person who makes things happen. She told me, "Mom, you don't need to stress. Just sell the house and move in with me. We'll use the money to pay off your medical bills and I'll take care of the rest. It'll be easier for everyone." I didn't want to sell the house. It was the only thing I had left of my life with Mark. But Emma was so convincing and I was scared of losing everything. She promised it would just be temporary, that once things were settled, we'd find a way to get me another place. She said she was looking out for me and I believed her. I mean, she's my daughter. In early 2020 I sold the house. Emma handled all the paperwork and I moved in with her. For a little while it seemed like things were going to be okay. The bills were paid and I tried to be helpful around the house, even though my back injury made it hard to do much. But then Emma started changing. It started with little comments about how expensive everything was, how much she was doing for me. She'd roll her eyes when I asked for help with groceries or medications. By the summer of 2020, she was outright complaining that I was a burden. One day, she told me that the money from the house was gone, used for household expenses, she claimed. I felt sick. I didn't even know what that meant. By the end of 2020, she told me I had to leave. No warning, no plan, just gone. I didn't have anywhere to go. If it weren't for my son Jake, I don't know what would have happened to me. Jake's 28 now and doesn't have much himself. He's a teacher, and money is tight for him. But he let me stay with him while I figured things out. With his help, I started rebuilding my life. By the end of 2021, I'd found a small rental I could afford on my disability benefits. It's nothing fancy, but it's mine. Over the next 2 years, I worked on healing physically and emotionally. Jake stuck by me through everything, even helping me stretch my budget to buy little things to make the place feel like home. Then, a few weeks ago, Emma showed up at my door. I hadn't seen her since she kicked me out 4 years ago, and I barely recognized her. She looked different, tired, stressed. Her business had gone under, she said, and she had nowhere else to go. She wanted to move in with me. I told her no. I wasn't mean about it. I was firm. I told her I didn't trust her anymore, and that I couldn't open my home to someone who had hurt me so badly. She exploded, calling me heartless and accusing me of choosing Jake over her. She said I was punishing her for something that happened years ago, and that as her mother I should be willing to help her. Now I'm second-guessing myself. Am I being too harsh? Should I let her stay and try to make things right? She's still my daughter, and as much as she hurt me, I can't just stop loving her. I don't know what to do. Was I wrong to refuse her? Comment OP. What's the relationship like between Emma and Jake? Did they ever get along? OP's reply: Emma and Jake were close when they were little. Jake always looked up to his big sister, and she loved being the leader back then. But as they got older, their personalities started clashing. Emma is very driven, but sometimes that means she doesn't think about how her actions affect other people. Jake, on the other hand, has always been more thoughtful and empathetic. I remember a specific time, maybe 10 years ago, when Jake was saving up for a school trip. Emma convinced him to lend her some of the money for a business idea she had, promising she'd pay him back. She never did. Jake didn't hold a grudge, but I think that moment planted a seed of distrust. When I moved in with Emma, Jake was wary but didn't say much. After she kicked me out, though, he was furious. He hasn't spoken to her since, and honestly I think he feels betrayed on my behalf. I don't know if they'll ever mend their relationship. Comment: does Emma blame Jake for your decision not to let her move in? OP's reply: oh, absolutely. When I told her no, she immediately accused me of favoring Jake. She said something like, "You'd let Jake live here if he needed help." And yes, I probably would, because Jake's never betrayed me or stolen from me. I tried to explain that to her, but she just got angrier and said I was picking sides. I think Emma resents Jake because he's been there for me when she wasn't. But that's not Jake's fault. He didn't push me away, she did. Update: hi again. I didn't expect so many people to read my story or leave such thoughtful comments. I've spent the last few days thinking about what you all said, and I want to thank you for your honesty. It's been hard, but it's also helped me see things more clearly. After everything that's happened, I've decided that I'm not going to help Emma. Not with a place to stay. Not with finding resources. Nothing. That might sound harsh, but please hear me out. When Emma sold my house and left me homeless, she didn't just hurt me financially, she broke my heart. I trusted her. I believed she wanted to help me, and instead, she took everything I had and tossed me aside when I was no longer useful to her. That kind of betrayal doesn't just go away because time has passed. When she showed up at my door, I wanted so badly to believe she'd changed. But the truth is, she hasn't. The way she acted, the entitlement, the guilt-tripping, the complete lack of accountability was just more of the same. She didn't apologize for what she did. She didn't even acknowledge it. All she cared about was what I could do for her now. I realized that if I helped her, I'd just be putting myself back in the same position I was in 4 years ago. Vulnerable, dependent, and at her mercy. I can't do that to myself again. I've worked too hard to rebuild my life. After I made my decision, I talked to Jake about it. He told me that he was proud of me, and that I didn't owe her anything. Jake has been my rock through all of this. He reminded me that saying no doesn't mean I don't love Emma, it means I love myself enough to set boundaries. I know some people might say I'm being too harsh, but I don't think that's true anymore. This isn't about revenge or holding a grudge, it's about protecting myself. I gave Emma every chance to be a part of my life, and she threw those chances away. Now it's up to her to figure out her own way forward. I'm going to focus on the life I've built for myself. It's not much, but it's mine and it's peaceful. Jake comes over for dinner once a week, and we spend hours talking and laughing. It's a small, simple joy, but it reminds me of what's truly important. To everyone who shared your advice, thank you. You gave me the courage to stand firm and put myself first for once. I don't know what the future holds for Emma and me, but for now I know I made the right choice. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button and share it with your friends.